Hey, Craig.
It's on you, it's all on me. Can't you see? It's on you, it's all on me. You and me, can't you? It's on you, it's on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Craig.
How's it going?
It's going.
How's
Our
that
football team is 7-1.
7-1 feeling.
Yeah, we
It's
like
only-
that.
This happened, since my freshman year at Wazoo. It's the third time.
Yeah.
My freshman year it happened, 2003.
Mhm.
And it happened in 2018, and now it's happened this year. So it's we just got to enjoy it. And I think we'll talk about that a little later. But this is Podcast versus Everyone, episode 228. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes,
With
that's correct.
With me. Yep, I'm just trying to remember it now because it's not on the screen. With
know,
me,
I
as
know.
usual, is Jeff Newser. I'm Craig Powers. I did that backwards. But Jeff, really excited about our football team, and we're going to get into that. But first, let's start with how they can have more fun with the football season in our Slack chat.
Yeah, so hey, just remember you can sign up for the newsletter. First of all, if you don't subscribe to the newsletter, Podcast versus Everyone, podcast vseveryone.com. You can go there. You can sign up for the newsletter, which will get you these episodes emailed to you when they're ready to go. Also, it will include the periodic musings of myself as I do my weekly columns and things like that. Now we're going to talk about basketball season today. Basketball season not far away. I do more stuff during basketball season. So subscribing to the newsletter there is a great idea. And if you want to notch it up even another level from there, we do have premium memberships where you get the occasional premium content, and then also gives you access to our premium Slack, which is where we have about 100 people in there now, talking about all things Coug. And as we mentioned before, it is a safe space. It is a safe space
Yes.
from others who might desire to bring us down. People who might say, "Oh, you're only 7-1 because of your schedule." Well, you're damn right. You're damn right. We had to play this fucking schedule. You're damn right. We're 7-1, and I have no shame in that. I don't know about you, Craig.
I have no shame at all. Wins are wins. And honestly, I feel like you kind of feel the vibes. You understand the vibes of how that Boise fan base grew so well over the years. They didn't care that they were just beating up on the Mountain West and the WAC. You get the UCF vibes. They're probably missing a little bit of that. And I'm sure even Utah, when they first entered the Pac-12, were missing beating up on the Mountain West teams when they struggled a bit. I mean, I think by the end they were fine with it, but yeah, like it's fun. Like WSU's already had a couple games where if they were playing better teams, they would have lost. At least I have probably let's say 3 at least.
Yeah, maybe.
If they were playing a normal conference schedule, probably a couple of those at least are more better teams, at least, especially last year compared to what the gamut of games they had last year. But you know what? There's also something to be said, and we'll talk about this now. Let's get into San Diego State. Something to be said about, again, a team treating Wazoo in homecoming or whatever like their Super Bowl. And even San Diego State's coach alluded to it, that this was just a massive game for them, and he wanted them to have this memory of winning this game they'll never forget over little old Wazoo. Like who in the Pac-12 has a famous win over Wazoo, maybe Colorado in 2016 when they
I
rushed the
mean,
field on
maybe.
us. But honestly,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how many people. Maybe UW beating on the Seattle Cubs, or whatever. But like who in the Pac-12 ever gave a shit about that? But now you
Yeah.
got Fresno devastated. They couldn't close it out. San Jose State devastated. They didn't close that out. Beat Wazoo. And now you got San Diego State at home playing on the sand. Bring it over from the beach. The stadium's pretty far from the beach, but apparently there's just a bunch of sand over there too.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. They throw it on top and it looked ridiculous. Like it was. I was like, okay, I've been here for 2 days and it has not rained. What the hell's kicking out of the turf?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took us like, oh wait, that's sand, because we're in California and like this happens at these California stadiums. And San Diego State suffered from that more than we did, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, I learned, so I was like, what in the actual hell is this? I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before. I have no idea. I mean, the only place I've ever seen sand on top of grass in any, measurable quantity is like if I went to a golf course that plugged their greens and put, sand over top. And I was just sort of like, why would they do this at a stadium? And Jake Dickert alluded during his news conference last week before the game, he alluded to the fact that they had done that a couple of weeks before. And he said, basically, I hope it's better. It looked really bad and I hope it's better. And it clearly was not better. So I've since learned that this is called top dressing. That is a thing. I had no idea what that was. Typically used to fill in divots or other sorts of gaps. I don't know why exactly they did it to their stadium. It could have been divots, right? Like the grass was not super strong. They had football games that took out the divots.
They have an NWSL team that plays there as well.
Yeah, but they have there was so much sand. I mean, that tells me, I don't know, maybe they put down some sod in places and they were trying to fill in the scene.
There was enough that it kind of discolored the turf.
Yeah. And it looked like there were these bare patches, except they weren't bare patches. They were patches where there was so much sand. I don't know. Honestly, it was pretty embarrassing for San Diego State. And I mean, you can speak to this, but the stadium looked beautiful otherwise.
Absolutely. Like, incredible stadium. Like, we all were blown away. Any Coug you talk to, as soon as we walk in, beautiful place, top-notch place. There's a bar right when you walk in the door, and we got like our double tequila sodas just right, and you can take them up to your
wait.
Like,
You can get a drink in the stadium.
There are lots of places to get drinks
In
it's
the
like
stadium. I didn't know that was allowed.
Feet.
I didn't know that was allowed.
Kidding. There's just like a full bar right when you walk in, and then you keep
Yeah.
walking. There's a bunch of San Diego brewer like bars with like just all San Diego beers, and then like all like it very well done. That the bathrooms are plentiful. The stadium's very very well appointed with the 35,000 whatever seats they have in it. It fits very well. Good seats. They go straight up. So like we were in the second deck, but it felt very close. Really loved the view we had. We were around the 50 on the second deck. Most of the Cougs were down in the bottom behind the bench. I think the half behind our bench was vast, like 90% Cougs. Like I think there was probably 9,000 Cougs in the stadium, and it felt like that in the Coug bar crawl on Friday because like you couldn't get into any of the bars. it was hard to get a drink anywhere, which is typical of Cougar bar crawls. But yeah, there was a lot of us there. It was probably like 50-50 Coug and Aztec.
It sounded
fans.
like
And
it
on
on
our
TV.
And on our side, it was and plus like they had the students at the end. I know it's probably hard for students. It's like a 10-15 minute drive from their campus. I assume they might bus them over there or something. But they had a student section behind the goalposts, and it was we'll recognize this. They were there in the first half, and then they weren't there in the second half. They also could have moved over to the side. I didn't really notice because there was a lot of seats. Like the side opposite from us was like all premium seating. Like even the seat that down to the field, it looked like big like bigger, more comfy, like club style seats, and then they had loge boxes, they had suites. So yeah, like a ton of premium seating in there, and then they have a big grandstand on the side we were on, where I think most of the the capacity lies. But they had, it's just a beautiful stadium. Love having that stadium in the Pac-12 now. I think it'll fit very well, and I think once they're in the Pac-12, and maybe they're a little better, that they'll be able to fill that thing up, and it'll be a really cool place to play. But yeah, it was. I was really impressed with that. Obviously, going to San Diego is amazing. Like San Diego, we like to say we pontoon gated. We rented a pontoon on Saturday, and before 7:30 game is perfect for when you're traveling to the game, and you have a place where you want to like do stuff. So we could, we did our pontoon, we went to the pool, and then we went out and, got some dinner before the game or whatever. But yeah, so it was a great venue. I'm so excited to visit there every other year. Honestly, I was there with, our friends Katie and BA, and obviously my wife was there too. She didn't really want to go to the football game, but, she wanted to go to San Diego. And we're like, come on, tag along to the football game. But we're all talking about like, okay, every other year we're doing this. Like we're just gonna come back. We're gonna make a regular trip to San Diego. Hopefully it's like in October and stuff when we're ready for some sun. And so it was. I'm really happy I went. Obviously a lot of Cougs went. Obviously I also caught an emo concert while I was there.
Never hurts.
One of my favorite bands, Hawthorne Heights. Woo! Shout out to Seth for going with me. I got excited. It was a real cheap concert. I bought a bunch of tickets when they went on sale. I was like, oh, some Cougs will go with me, and Seth and his girlfriend went with me, so that was fun. And he got to experience, oh, this is what emo is, and I'm like, yeah, emo's a lot of things, and this is one of them. And
this is one of them.
Yep. But so that was fun. Anyways, the football game, the trip was amazing. I'm obviously buzzing about it. I was really excited. I posted a little video recap of it on our Instagram and our TikTok, podcast versus everyone on those. You can check it out. But anyway, so the game, man, I'll tell you, I was not in a good place in early fourth quarter.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was, but it'd be worse if I had been in the stadium.
Some people around me could definitely attest to that. I love you, Brad. But there's that was just like, what is going on? Now, in the back of my mind, I'm like, we can come back from this, but will we? Like, we haven't done anything on offense in.
Yeah, you got to score points to come back.
And it's not even that they weren't scoring.
Kind of a prerequisite.
Up until then, they weren't even moving the ball.
Yeah.
But, you and I have talked about this, like watching the game with BA is a whole experience, and his analysis of everything. It's just it's wild.
Because he can spot stuff as it's happening.
Yeah. He was just like, we should hit this. We should hit this. We should hit this play. We should this play. And I'm like, okay. And like,
yeah, sounds good. Let's do that.
He called like a vertical route with the tight end on the first touchdown. I don't know, man. It's wild. I was like, how did you know that? And but he mentioned like when WSU went tempo, that was big. That changed things for them.
Yes,
and they were forced into it, and they didn't for much of the game, but they went tempo because there was 12 minutes left and they were down 2 touchdowns, and they scored in a minute and a half. And they had chunk plays. Obviously, one really very fortunate catch, amazing catch by Kyle Williams, but then a wide open.
Kyle Williams.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy. And Levy Carlos Hernandez is back and is playing really well. Great touchdown and great finish to the catch and to get to the end zone. And then suddenly you're like, okay, like when they get the ball back with like 12 minutes left, you're like, they got to score quick, otherwise this ain't happening. And they scored quick. And it was the tempo, and it's like, okay, maybe we should have been doing this earlier. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm glad you're forced into it. It did kind of have the feeling of like, how many college football games do you watch where a team is on an upset bid and they they have a team on the ropes, and then the better team just kind of figures out what to do, and
Yep.
they have the talent to make it happen.
Yep.
And I think that's what happened here. You know, WSU figured out what to do, and they had the talent to make it happen. Obviously, needed a big play on defense again from Buddha. That interception on a 3rd and long, which, you know, we were excited. It was like, okay, at least we're going to hold them to a field goal. Probably it's like 3rd and 15
Right.
after a big sack by Dinboo. Dinboo. Thank you.
There you go.
I want to say Dimba, and I know it's not right. Dinboo, his 3rd sack of the game.
Yeah.
And then just like incredible. Like they talked about how so this is on the ensuing drive after WSU scores a touchdown. To talk about looking at video on the sideline, and San Diego State had run the same play, the same formation earlier, so they basically showed blitz with the linebackers, pulled back the linebackers. They blitzed one off the edge, and Buddha just dropped back right into that spot where they knew he was going to throw that slant, and he threw that slant. And honestly, a guy that had not given the ball away, like he only threw one pick and like 100+ passes before that, but they got him, and all of a sudden we were in it, and then to go down, you know, Mateer makes an incredible play. What it would have been a 3rd and 18. He spins out of it, converts a first down, and then a few plays later they're scoring, and they have the lead and they hold, and it's just like, holy crap, we did it again. They did it again. Like two double-digit fourth quarter comebacks this season, a third just fourth quarter comeback period. I mean, it's crazy to watch, and they're 7-1, Jeff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did the whole recap, but it's crazy to watch.
Like I do want to like jump on the idea of playing with a little faster tempo. I'm not a person who thinks like that, you know, tempo is everything, or that playing at a fast tempo is the solution to every problem. I do think that this team needs to recognize that they are superior in terms of talent. Now, I know coaches, they don't preach that stuff. They want their players to believe that, you know, the other team is super dangerous and very talented and whatever. But the reality is, you know, the more talented players reside, you know, on our side of the ball in most of the games we've played this year, definitely in the rest of the games down the stretch. Doesn't mean, you know, that wins are assured or anything like that, as we've seen from these games where we had to have the fourth quarter comebacks. But the coaches certainly could recognize that there's a bit of a talent disparity here and coach the game in a fashion that leans maybe a little harder into that. And when I watched that game on Saturday in the first half, okay, so they score on the first drive, and you want to talk about tempo. The tempo was right there on that first drive. I mean, it was like bang, 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 bang. Now that's a bit of a product of running off a script, right? Like, you know, you're basically, you know, have an idea
coming.
of what, exactly. You know what you're going to call in each situation on that first drive because, you know, okay. And of course you can't wait to get into the situation where you're going to call the trick play and throw a touchdown, right? So, I mean, I get all that, but at the same time, I do think that there is something to when you are the more talented team being the aggressor. And too often it feels like, particularly on offense, defense, maybe not quite as much, but on offense, it feels like they sort of fall back into a tempo, a cadence that is just more to the liking of the opponent, right? You know, and it just, you know, it reminds you of, I mean, you and I both huge soccer fans, you know, where you can just sort of get lulled into, okay, the other team is giving me this, so I'm going to go ahead and take what they're giving me, but I'm not really going to press the issue. You know, Sounders did that the other night where it's just like, you know, you can be passive and feel like you're doing something, or you can sort of take the game to the other team. And it sure feels like our offense maybe needs to do a little more of that. And I understand it's a fine line. It's not just as simple. It's not just as simple as going faster, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of things that do go into it. And I have an appreciation for that. It just feels like as the more talented team, being a little more aggressive, pushing the envelope just a little more. I mean, it doesn't even have to necessarily be breakneck speed, but just enough to unsettle the other team, I think is, something that maybe they should consider trying to do. Maybe even just running, snapping plays, 5 seconds sooner. It doesn't have to be a ton, but something that maybe puts the other team on their heels just a little bit and gives the feeling that we're the aggressor. We're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to keep coming at you. And that the tempo is just going to be something that makes the other team a little uncomfortable. And I think we can do that with our talent. It's not a situation, I think, where we necessarily need to slow it way down and really outthink and outmaneuver the other team. And I think we've also seen John Mateer, you mentioned him. I think we've sort of seen at his best. He's at his best when he's also maybe not overthinking things, maybe also just sort of rolling with quick decisions. And I just feel like good tempo can sort of foster that. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Obviously, you mentioned the Kyle Williams catch. Bad throw, right? John Mateer after the game is like, bad throw. I underthrew it. Kyle Williams makes a great play. So it's not guaranteed. I mean, that could have gone badly, just probably a lot more easily than it went well, right? But at the same time, the 3 other plays around it were all awesome, and that's how you get in the end zone so fast. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think they should do that. What else did you think of the defense and the job they did, especially being, surprised? You and I spent a lot of time last week talking about how San Diego State runs and runs and runs and runs and runs. And I don't know, man, in my newsletter, I had to put, I swear to God, we were not making that up. Like it was 50+% rushes up until Saturday.
I mean, I was just watching their first few possessions. I was just stunned. Like it was throw after throw after throw after throw, and it continued for much of the game until they had, the lead. Honestly, like their number one back, 18 carries for 78. It's 4.3. It's what he averages all year.
Yeah, that's what he does.
They got him on a trick. They had this guy I don't think plays much, Cam Davis, but he looked very speedy. Kind of smaller guy. They got him on kind of an end around, and he got a big run. They just came out and hucked the ball. 39 passes or 41 passes in total. They ran some trick passes. Their backup quarterback, who has played a lot this season, hasn't played well. They came out. They were still throwing the ball with him. And then Danny O'Neal, their starter, 34 times. He threw 34 times for 194 yards. That's not a lot, but honestly, that's better than they were doing with their run game.
Yeah. So
it was an improvement, and it definitely took us by surprise. Well, that scared the hell out of me.
For the listeners who are only on podcast,
I literally Happy Halloween. That was a real legit jump scare.
Yeah, my youngest son just came in and gave me a hug to say goodnight.
He just popped out over your head.
I know. Y'all gonna have to watch the YouTube video to see that one. About 23 minutes into the video. Anyway,
but yeah. So I think it took us by surprise.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally did.
They had done nothing like that leading up to this game.
No. Well, and it's not unusual.
It's
not crazy unusual for a team to do that for like a series. Coming out of the bye week, hey, let's script a bunch of passing plays. Let's try to take them by surprise. Let's go against our tendency. Let's do something we don't normally do. They won't be ready for it, and maybe we can get an advantage that way. Okay, that's not unusual. What's unusual is they just kept doing it, right? Like they just kept throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. It did almost bite them in the butt early, right? Like he threw one right into Gushkin's arms that would have been a pick six.
Should have been a pick six. Yeah.
Like it was.
And Gushkin could have picked another one on their first drive as well.
Yeah. It's not like he didn't put it in dangerous spot, even though they don't really turn the ball over. It's not like he didn't put it in dangerous spots there with this new philosophy of throwing the ball 65% of the time. And then, of course, eventually it does finally bite them in the butt at the
Yeah.
end. And, so I mean, it's one of those things where you go, okay, did it work? Kinda. Like, I mean, it did. And like, if you just in a vacuum, you'd be like, oh yeah, it was successful for them. But at the same time, it ends up, they don't win. And the play that sort of like allows us to cap the comeback is an interception that, maybe they don't throw if they're not throwing as much. I know it was in a specific situation where they would normally be throwing, like a third and
Yeah.
long, but at the same time, they went back to that well over and over and over again. And, Jen on our Slack said, I thought she made a great point, was like, hey, if you're doing something that you don't normally do and you're installing it even over a bye, the number of plays you've got, the number of things you can do, it's still going to be reduced from a team that does this regularly.
Yep.
And I think there's a pretty good chance that that's what was happening there. He just kind of threw it blind, and, Buddha was right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I talked, I talked myself into it when I was like, I looked at their number of sacks before the game. And then we did the math on the sack percentage before the game.
Yeah.
And they were giving up sacks on over 7% of dropbacks. I'm like, okay. And then we wondered, okay, which is high. And we wondered,
Yes.
would Wazoo be able to take advantage of that high sack percentage? And they did. 4 sacks, all from defensive line.
Yep.
That's not some, and not all wasn't all because of blitzes. The defensive line was beating guys in pass pro. Like it was, obviously, Dimbu had a great game. That's a legendary game. He will never forget that. 3 sacks. But yeah, they put pressure on him, especially once they kind of figured out the game plan.
Yeah.
They were able to get pressure, and honestly, it was a lot of trick plays that created some big plays for them. They had, I think, 3 or 4 trick plays that, or end arounds, or using a player that they never used, things like that, where they got some real nice chunk plays. And that was something that WSU was not getting the entire game up until those last couple drives, was chunk plays. And that was like a lot of my frustration watching the game and in the stadium, is like they're getting these chunk plays, and we have that one touchdown on the first drive where we use a trick play, flea flicker, and you get a touchdown out of it. But other than that, they were really struggling. And kind of that amazing catch by Kyle pops off the lid, and then it flows from there. And finally we don't have to be mad at the end. And we have many fireball shots in the bar after.
Yeah.
It's just you get to a bar and you're like, I don't know. Does anyone like fireball? Like, it's fine. All right, we're just getting fireball. Because people are like, they want like mixed shots. And it's like there's one bartender for like 100 people. They don't want to do that.
No.
We asked the bartender, like, what
Straight
would you make?
shots.
And she's like a shot of whiskey. And we're like, okay. But yeah, so it was it was really frustrating. Like, San Diego State had figured out ways to generate big plays, and it had got, they were getting points out of it. They got a touchdown off of a wide receiver pass. They got into field goal range with 3 different other two or three other trick plays, where they basically just got a chunk of the field at once, and they weren't really doing much else otherwise. So that really generated quite a few points. The field goals, at least 1 touchdown, and then I think that we haven't talked about it yet, but WSU had so many chances to put this game away in the third quarter, and at the end of the second quarter.
Yep.
They just had so many chances. They could have went up 21-6 at the end of the second. They could have extended the lead out to 2 possessions in the third many times. And San Diego State was struggling. The defense was holding San Diego State down, preventing a comeback. Was kind of staying that 14-12 or whatever it was for a while. And then Freeman fumbles that punt. And that was that San Diego State, that's like what they needed.
Yep.
And they were like, "All right." And then they did that wide receiver pass right after that touchdown.
Yep.
Oh shit, we're losing. We're losing. What the hell just happened?
Yeah. How?
Like, and it was like, what is going on? Like, how are we losing this game right now?
Yeah.
And then obviously WSU kind of fell apart. You know, they did not handle that right away, and gave it back to them, and then they score on a shorter field again, and you're sitting there like, oh, what's going on? But as we said before, they went tempo, they made plays, they survived. They're 7-1. They're ranked number 22. Finally breaking into those rankings this year. All we had to do is go 7-1.
That's all.
That's all.
That's it. Yeah, the ranking is super cool, right? Like I know that we have some fans out there that, you know, are just like, whatever, rankings don't matter, or whenever we start like complaining about not being in the rankings when we feel like we should, just keep winning and it'll take care of itself. Like, completely misses the point because the point is that, you know, there's inherent value in being ranked, and it's it gets you attention on I mean just like from the most basic things on up. So like a super basic one, you go to ESPN.com, what do they show you by default? Top 25, right?
Yep.
You turn on Sports Center, what do they show you by default? Well, SEC, but then top 25, right? Like, you know, if you're in that top 25, or, you know, it's halftime. Oh, let's check in on the top 25 on CBS or whatever. And they're like, oh, top 25. Like when you cross that magic threshold, people pay attention to you in a way, and you are in the consciousness in a way that you just aren't when you're not ranked. And and we saw the huge difference when Boise State was ranked 25 and we were ranked 26 and playing each other. Ostensibly, this is two teams just one apart from each other in the rankings, right? I mean, this could have been 19 versus 20 or 10 versus 11 or whatever. And everybody be like, oh my God, look at this. Two ranked teams within these are two really evenly matched teams. I should watch this. This will probably be a good game. Instead, it was one team with a number, the other team without one, even though they were separated by like, I don't know, 3 votes, right? That's what the difference was between the two of them. So it matters. It matters. And it's fucking super cool that we're back in. We get to have a bye this week and just enjoy it and not worry about, we should stay in. I mean, it would be, I don't know, man. I don't know what it would take for us to drop out during the bye week. That'd be like getting fired on your day off, right?
It'd be like
for those of us of a certain age.
Every team on the cusp of being in the rankings beats like a top 10 team.
Yeah. Maybe that could happen.
That would be it. Yeah, it's one thing I was a bit surprised. I thought that would get Wazoo the 12:30 kick on Saturday or against Utah State.
Yeah.
Not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
Yep.
But they got the 7:30, and I wonder what the CW was thinking with that. Maybe they thought maybe we can juice some of the 7:30 numbers. Because, you know, Oregon State matchup isn't anything special, and so it's interesting that they ended up there. I'm gonna have my 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old at that point with me. It's gonna be a late night for her. But
lots of cotton candy.
You know, and we'll probably maybe try to catch some of the soccer game before the. That allows either way would have allowed to see some of the soccer game.
Yeah.
Which is for those of you who don't know, WC Soccer is playing at 4 that day, and WC Men's Basketball is playing at 8 p.m. on Friday. I think volleyball plays before that, and then Women's Basketball plays on Sunday, which is a packed weekend, and then Men's Basketball plays again on Monday.
Kind of sounds like a homecoming weekend.
Yeah, it does. No, but I think our homecoming was when is it homecoming? No,
Hawaii
that
was
Hawaii. That's right.
This is the joke, though. Like, why wasn't this homecoming with all that stuff that's going on? I don't know.
It could have been it is more normal time for Parents' Weekend, but they had that on a Friday instead.
Yeah. Weird.
But yeah, like so they got the 7:30 kick. But yeah, like you said it exactly. I mean, I remember like back in the day, you know, you when you'd watch the ticker for the scores,
Mm-hmm.
and they would only have the top 25 on there regularly, and occasionally the other ones would pop up. But you knew like they would always show the top 25, and so like it was always fun. Like when WSU was ranked, rarely just to see like, oh, WSU, their score is just going to come up over and over again. And like you said, like Sports Center would have the highlights. Now I haven't watched Sports Center in so long, so I don't know how they do the highlights these days. But yeah, like you get talked about if you're ranked. You might even be one of the picks on college game day.
Yep.
All that, like, probably won't be because it'll be such a big spread. But yeah, it's exciting to, honestly, there isn't a ton of weeks in Wazoo football history that they've been ranked, and now they're gonna have like 2 in a row.
Yeah,
and
at least 2 more.
Gosh, please, can they have at least a third? Utah State. We'll talk about them next week, but
yeah, and it's, I mean, if they keep winning, who knows how high they go. Now if we start talking college football playoff stuff, and obviously it's, maybe a little early for that sort of thing, but before we play our next game, they will unveil the first CFP ranking. So we'll have to see. We'll talk about this more.
We'll see where they're at.
Yeah, but that's something to keep an eye on, right? Like, is the CFP pretty closely mirroring, the AP poll? Do they have their own methodology that they're going to apply? Like, how are they maybe going to go about it? But what I do know is that ESPN has their own playoff predictor, algorithm or whatever, which I was like kind of thinking about. I'm like, how would they assign a percentage, right, to a system that didn't exist before? But the CFP has always done a ranking of 1 to 25. So I'm guessing they probably compared. They have a metric called strength of record, which is basically like a resume metric. My guess is they sort of compared that strength of record to the CFP rankings that they always come up with, and just like kind of try to figure out what the correlation was there. And if you finish with a certain strength of record, what's the likelihood of that team being in the top 12 of the CFP? So, but they put WSU's chances at 10% of making the CFP, 49% to win out. So Captain Math, I had to run this by the folks in the Slack to make sure I was doing it right. But, that's like a 20% chance of making the CFP if they win out. If you win out, right? So, like, I don't know, man, 1 in 5, that's not crazy, and that also kind of passes the smell test to me, as far as like what might be a reasonable number. And you never know, man. Maybe they can sort that. I'll probably take some chaos, but you just keep winning, and wins matter the most. Boise State keeps winning. If your only loss is on the road to a team that's also in the playoff, then your resume starts to look a lot better.
Well, and let me just list off a few teams. I'm not even going to look at it, Jeff. You could check my work.
Okay.
List off a few teams who, if they won out in the regular season, obviously some have an automatic bid, but that would not have 20% chance of making the playoff. Washington,
True.
UCLA,
True. Also true.
Arizona.
Yep.
I don't think Utah can win out and get to the Big 12 title game.
Nope.
Arizona State could, I believe, still. We'll say Arizona State. If they win out, they would have 100% chance. So Arizona State still got us beat there. USC, nope. They're not.
Nope.
They're not going to the Big 10 title game. They're not going to the playoff.
Nope.
Cal, nope.
Nope.
Stanford, nope.
Definitely.
Am I forgetting anyone? Nope. I think that's all. Yeah,
except for Oregon, so, we won't talk about Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon and Arizona State are the only ones that got us beat right now.
Yeah,
and that's because they can get their auto bid. Obviously, Oregon State, if they win out, even if they don't win the Big 12 title, a Big Big Ten title game, they'd still be in. But yeah, like it's funny to me. We're playing our Mountain West schedule,
Yeah.
and we have a better chance of making the playoff than almost all of the defenders.
Yes.
So
Yes.
fuck all
I think-
y'all.
Yeah. Oregon's playoff percentage is 88%, which,
I mean, their schedule, their remaining schedule.
at this point,
is not,
at this point, I think that's the second highest playoff percentage among there. Arizona State, just for giggles, Arizona State, they are at, let's see, playoff percentage. Sorry, they don't. ESPN does not pin their header, so they've got their playoff percentage at only 0.4%. But again, that sort of accounts for the fact that they've only got, I think it looks like a 1% chance of winning out. They've got to play both Kansas State and BYU in their last 5 games. So I mean, in theory, if they win out, they'd be in great shape. But that's a tall order, man. It's a tall order against those two teams. I think they gotta go to K-State, and then I think they got BYU at home. So
I will say to win out, particularly on the road, especially in Corvallis, WSU is going to have to play a little better.
And Oregon State's going to be psyched for that game for sure.
Yeah, especially if WSU's still ranked. I mean, New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
you're playing. That's a weird place. You're playing
Yep.
at elevation. It's a tough
No doubt.
trip. And plus, I don't know. Like, I'm hopeful the Utah State, Wyoming at home. They've played well at home, with the exception of San Jose State. But both those teams are pretty bad. So just hoping that the talent plus being at home carries them through. Again, like now you're at the point where like anything less than 10-2 at this point is going to be disappointing.
Oh, yeah.
And you're probably going to be favored in the last 4.
Yep.
Maybe just by a few points against Oregon State, but I think it depends how these next 2 go. But I think they'll probably be favored in the last 4.
Yep.
I mean, at this point, you would be like if they just projected them out.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a weird feeling. Like usually when WSU has a big season going, there's a couple big teams that are left on the schedule at this
Yes.
point. You still have
It's
the Apple
super
Cup. Yeah. And just to be like, okay, we played the toughest, like they've played their hardest Mountain West road games in San Diego State and Boise State and Fresno State. And they won 2 of those.
Yep.
They miss UNLV. This is a good year to miss them, obviously. And unless you're trying to go to the playoff, maybe having them at home would have been nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just weird to be in this position that we can even talk about winning out. And that they have a nearly 50-50 proposition to win out with 4 games to play is crazy.
Yep.
And it's fun. And I have to, so I'll admit something, like it's sometimes after the games, I just keep feeling this like sense of relief more than elation. And I'm just like trying to I just want to be like, I keep reminding myself, just like live in this moment. Like you wrote about it in your newsletter. Like I kept thinking of a San Diego State game, like, I want to be like more hyped, but I was just like so relieved that they didn't lose by the end.
Yeah.
Like it was honestly, I had feelings of like, when the Seahawks went on that run to the Super Bowl win in 2013, like everything just felt like you didn't really enjoy it. Like it's just like you're just like they're supposed to win. Like and when you're the favored team, it's not as much fun to win.
Yeah, it's different.
Like and I'm just trying to get past that,
Yeah.
And so I just and maybe as the stakes raise, it changes the calculus.
I think that's part of the issue, though, is like, what are the stakes, right? Like,
we're not playing for a league title.
Yeah, 2018, part of what made that season obviously so magical was the, not necessarily the prospect of the CFP, although we were like way into like, could we get in? Might this happen? And then of course after Arizona, we all went, oh no, we're never getting in. But it's like there was always the Pac-12 championship and Rose Bowl, and like it was like, okay, this is what we're fighting toward. This is what we're doing. And with this season, it's like, well, what exactly are you fighting for? You're not fighting for a conference championship because there is none. You are, I don't know, maybe fighting for the Alamo Bowl, like, which right now looking real good for the Alamo Bowl, right?
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
that's not a traditional.
Oh, one team I forgot about was Colorado. By the way.
Oh yes, yeah.
They have a.
How
they
could
have
you
a-
forget?
They have a.
How could you forget?
Yeah,
Colorado?
they could. If they won out, they would obviously be in the playoff.
They would have a decent.
Anyways, so yeah, and also we were discussing now if Colorado was within one win of Wazoo,
Yes.
would
Yeah.
the Alamo Bowl pick a Big 12 matchup just to get Dion? I don't know. Like, maybe we'll talk
Yeah.
about that when it gets closer.
Yeah.
But if,
And they
if
might,
both
but
of
it's-
the teams keep winning.
I do think it's a huge credit to Jake Dickert and the coaching staff to keep this team focused and rolling without the carrot of a conference championship, without the carrot of, hey, if you just win out, you're going to get in the CFP. Like, virtually any team in the country that's of WSU stature, if they win out from where they're at right now, they're going to get an automatic bid. Not us, right? And so I know that they're thinking about the CFP because you can hear it in some of the comments that they make. Like that is the carrot that they are, chasing basically. And so good for them that that's what they are doing. From a fan perspective, we can sit here and go, maybe 20%, right? Like, or 10% or whatever it is. Like, we can sit there and go, what are we really working toward? And that definitely can take some of the joy out of it for us as fans because we maybe don't dream the same way that players do. But still, like you said, and like I wrote about, just trying to really enjoy the fact that we're winning a lot more than we're losing, right? And because that doesn't always happen. And winning is fun and winning is cool.
It's like it's hard. I mean, it's easy to forget because I think your mind just wants to block it out. But last year was tough. Like they started 4-0 and then lost 7 games in a row.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like or six games in a row, whatever. Like it was a lot. Like I think it was 6. And so they lost 6 games,
and then
in
they
a row.
won, and then they
and
lost,
then they beat Colorado, and then they lost them. But they were. You start 4-0, you're like, okay, the bowl game's obviously going to happen. Like and then CFP maybe, conference title maybe, and then it all falls apart, and that was miserable. That was not a good time.
Yeah.
This year, they lose at Boise State. They're playing like crap against Fresno. We're like, oh my God, it's falling apart again.
Yep.
But you know what? They've won the last 3 games since losing at Boise State.
Yep.
So that's why they're at 7-1 now. Like it's crazy to think. Like Wazoo is 7-1. And we thought, once we beat UW, we thought that, well, that's a possibility. But things don't always work out. And obviously they have not worked out exactly how we hoped. Some real hairy wins, San Jose State and Fresno State and San Diego State, where win like at no point there was no point where you were like sure they were going to win. Yeah. And so and here we are 7-1 and ranked finally. Are they the 22nd best team in the country? Do I care? No.
No, don't care. I mean, they do have ESPN has them as their. I was gonna say ESPN has them as their 21st strength of record. Like that's how AP voting goes. Like it's about wins and how quality your wins are, and then they slot you in somewhere. So I mean, I think they're ranked appropriately based off typical ranking methodology. Don't fucking care if they're not the 22nd best team in the country. We've got the 22nd best.
We don't have to play
record.
We don't have to play anyone in the
whatever.
We don't have to play anyone in the top 75 or whatever. Maybe Oregon State.
Don't care.
So don't care. Like it. it was just as fun singing the fight song in another stadium.
Yep.
And let's see, I got to do that. And I haven't traveled a ton to Wazoo football games, but USC was a big one. 2013.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, that was probably the best feeling. And then San Diego State and UW a couple times. But obviously didn't get to sing it in Boulder. But it was really fun to be able to do that. And then so many of the Coug fans that were there were so happy to be there. And we were all happy to be, we were all yelling at each other like 7-1. Holy shit, 7-1. Like,
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. So, yeah, let's all just enjoy it. We have a week and a half to enjoy it. Go watch the rewind video. They just skipped right on to the part when WSU's down by 12 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They didn't even talk about the rest of the game.
Yeah,
I love those rewind videos, honestly. I said it
They're
on my
amazing.
Instagram. Like,
Yep.
you don't get those if they don't win, which is fair.
Right.
I wouldn't watch them. If they made if they did like the NFL Films thing for the 2-win team where they have the season recap and it seems like they won the Super Bowl.
Those were the best.
Like,
Oh my God. I loved
just in
those
the
so
summer,
much when I was
in
a
the
kid.
summer, you'd be like watching like ESPN in the middle of the
Yeah.
day, like doing nothing, and
And you're
hoping
thinking
those
like,
would come on.
wait, how many games did that team win? I thought they only won like 3 games.
Or
And it's
get
like
the
you watch it,
Seahawks
you would
one.
think they were like one step from the Super Bowl, you know?
You get to like the Tom Flores Seahawks season,
Oh,
like
yeah.
6 and 10 seasons, and you're like,
Talking about
Whoa,
how they
this is
battled. Yeah.
6 wins. It's just like entirely focused on Cortez Kennedy. Like the
Yeah,
whole thing is like,
Yeah. Wow. They had this. They must have been really good. No, they were not good. All right. Shall we talk beer or basketball next?
yeah, Jeff. What are you drinking to celebrate 7-1 for our number 22 Wazoo Cougars?
All right. So for the folks who are watching on YouTube, they'll be say this. For people listening on the podcast, I am holding up a gold dot, gold dot, Hopfin Herb Pills de Pills. Hopfin Herb Pills de Pills. So I do love Gold Dot beers. Gold Dot Pilsners are particularly delicious. And this one is no exception. I will say, Craig, this was just in case you were wondering, the 2024 winner of the Bit Burger Challenge in Portland. Also
legit.
won the Mom's Favorite Beer Award. Says it right on the can. Mom's Favorite Beer Award.
Yay.
So good job, Mom. Anyway,
thing
yeah,
that
great
matters.
beer. Love it. Gold Dot. I think that the last Gold Dot I had was the Dortmunder. But this one, this one's awesome too. So yeah, they do a great job with Pilsners and lagers for sure.
We may have already said this, but did I mentioned to you like the kind of the history of Gold Dot?
You
What
might
they
have.
are.
I don't remember.
So that it's the people of Heater Allen Brewing, like a side project
Okay.
essentially. Yeah, and they've
Okay.
been making some real. I mean, Heater Allen beers are impeccable, and then they've been crushing it with those Gold Dot beers. I love
Yeah.
that brand.
Yep.
So
They're
good.
excellent.
So
How about
I'm
you,
having
man?
I'm having a beer from Seattle brewery named Kings. Or no, wait, this is Seattle. This is I get them confused with another Latin Lass. That's in Seattle. This Kings and Daughters, I believe, is in Oregon, Portland. Kings and Daughters Fresh Hop Fill Your Cup.
Love it.
They say that the first beer we released in 2021 was Fill Your Cup. It was a soft launch of our soft IPA. And so they make a fresh hop one every year to revisit it. So they make these. This is a very like them thing. They make these soft IPAs, and what they are essentially is they are like a 5.5%, 5% IPA, and they're usually hazy, and they have some of those hazy qualities where they're not overly bitter. This one's like not bitter at all. They're not like punching in your face. But they're using a ton of dry hopping for the aroma. This one has a shit ton of like hops in it. They have Simcoe Fresh Hop, Simcoe Cryo, and Mosaic Lupamax dry hops. So they're using the kind of the advanced stuff. They use some different hop oils in here. So yeah, this is they use a lot of stuff. They put a lot into it. It is soft. It is a soft IPA. Like it's not, and I just want to do one more fresh hop. Not letting fresh hop. We're still in October. I'll let it go after this.
Yep.
But yeah, it is very soft. Like it has a good nose. Like it's very, kind of fruity, tropical aroma, and then real easy to drink. Now, if you are wanting a big hop flavor, some bitterness, trust them when they say soft. Like it's very soft. It's got nice like body to it. It's very easy to drink. It's not gonna get you super hammered. It's only 5%, so it's just kind of standard beer. But it's good. Like most of the Kings and Daughters stuff I have is very good. I recommend checking them out. So yeah, check out Kings and Daughters. It's a cool label for those. It's just like a beer, and it's got some
Woo!
hops. Pretty
Love it.
simple. Pretty simple stuff. But yeah, and then of course, I see you're probably cracking one too.
We're
After
moving
this,
we're
I'll
moving
have
on
my-
to the old Crimson.
I have my old Crimson. Let me just finish this off.
Oh, it's chug time.
All right, get that old Crimson out. Yeah, it's old Crimson time. No, this beer. No, I'm just kidding. We all know old Crimson.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an old.
This
Crimson
beer
mixed
is
with
an impeccul lager. It's legendary,
the
some might
greatest
say.
beer of all time. Let me
The
try not to
greatest
spill it
beer
all over
ever
my
brewed.
laptop today. I think I'll spill it over my laptop this time. No.
No, no,
Got it, guys.
nope. Good pour.
We're
good pour.
good.
Well done.
Good pour. All right. So let's move on.
Hoops.
Hoops. I can't believe it.
Basketball.
It snuck up on me.
I know.
Monday.
Holy shit.
Double header.
Yeah. Yeah.
Women's hoops, then men's hoops.
Yeah.
Basketball
How
is
about that?
back.
It is.
WCC, baby.
God. I am still
Dude,
so
I saw.
I don't know about you, but every time I go to Ken Palm or Bart Torvik or whatever, and I go to our team page and it says West Coast Conference at the top, I'm just like, fuck. Like it's still is not sunk
It
in.
really hit me today. There was like a video on Instagram or something that they did with some of the players, and they were wearing the uniforms, and they had
It said
WCC
WCC on it.
in
Yeah.
the patch.
I
Yeah,
know.
so
We've
I'm
seen
sure
that
they'll
with
have-
the soccer teams and the soccer team
Yeah.
and the volleyball team, but still, like,
Volleyball has
it's
it on the back.
it's a little different. It's a little different with the
Volleyball
basketball.
volleyball has Pac-12 on the court and WCC. But yeah, to be in the WCC for a couple, at least we know now, like really, it's only going to be 2 years.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
that kind of like softens the blow.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to start with the women's team because I'm more excited about them. To be honest,
Okay.
I'm more bullish on their potential this season.
Interesting.
Especially in the WCC. As you probably know that they were picked second in the WCC behind Gonzaga. It was pretty close. They got some first place votes. So they have a real shot at winning a bunch of games and then also winning that automatic bid in Las
Yep.
Vegas. Because honestly, like they lost Bella and Charlize, but when you put this team, what they had left in the WCC with Alavilla and Genevilla and with Tara Wallach and like all the hoopers,
Yep.
like it's just there's so many good players. Like we
Yes.
talked about this, and that's why we were so bummed when Charlize got hurt last year, because they had really built a really good team around her where she wasn't playing well, but they were like
Yep.
really good. And obviously they were kind of shell shocked, and the Pac-12 last year was just insane for women's basketball. It will not be that case at the West Coast Conference. They are not going to be playing fucking top 10 teams twice a weekend, every weekend. like they did last year after Charlize got hurt. But yeah, I think like this, they have a good shot at stacking wins in this conference. And I think they really they're looking to challenge themselves in the non-conference as well. They're playing at Stanford, so give us another shot to break that.
We got one more shot.
Streak.
We were,
They're playing-
last year we were like, God, okay, damn it, we're never gonna get this, and that's like,
Yeah, I never get a chance, but
we do got one more chance.
I don't think Stanford's gonna play at Pullman again, but.
But Tara Vanderveer's no longer coaching, so
Yeah,
maybe
this is our chance.
Maybe there's a chance there. Maybe that's it, because maybe there's no more like do it for Tara or whatever. I don't know. So,
but yeah, they play at Texas Tech, at Iowa. They play Virginia. They'll play Virginia in a tournament sort of thing, the Puerto Rico Shootout. They play at U of O. They host BYU. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 power conference teams that they're playing. None of them just one of them at home in the non-conference schedule. So they're looking. That tells you right away that they have the mindset that they can be an NCAA tournament team, and not just win the bid tournament team. That they could be a at-large tournament team.
Yeah.
Now, one of the greatest things that has happened in this offseason, and I am so excited about it, is that Bart Torvik has launched.
I'm looking at it right now.
A women's basketball site. I am a paid subscriber to Her Hoop Stats. I love Her Hoop Stats. I cannot figure out what the fuck they're doing with their rating system. I can't figure out the logic of it, which is fine. I'm not supposed to know, but Bart Torvik's system is essentially adapted old Ken Palm's old system. And he has applied that now to women's hoops, which can't have been easy for him to do. It's not the same histories of sports. You can't just apply the same algorithm to a different league and expect
it's a
it
different
to be
environment.
the same. It'd be like if you were putting the same adjustments on things for NBA versus NCAA. Like it's just like there's the style of plays are different and it's just things are different. And the fact that he took the time to do that, Bart doesn't charge anything. Bart doesn't make any money for this. Bart is a goddamn.
There's not even any ads.
There's no ads. Like Bart, I don't know what the fuck. Maybe this guy's a secret billionaire and he's just like, I'm bored, man. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. They have, again, I'm not looking, Jeff. I think Wazoo was 64th.
60. Well, they may have been 64th. They're 63rd right now. So I don't know. Maybe something
maybe
changed.
A player change or something.
Maybe.
But yeah, that's where you can play yourself. Like if that's where you're starting as, you could.
Yeah.
If you have some improvements from some key players, they have a lot. WC has a lot of young players that could have massive improvement in their second year. Ella and Jenna, there's just a lot of young players that could just take a big leap, and also and show out this year. And so I think that they're in a good spot given what they lost. They lost their two most important players, to be honest. But they're in a good land. Like they're landing in the WCC in a very competitive way, where some of our other teams, volleyball, it's turned out better. We were worried that they were going to get in there and lose a bunch, to some WCC teams. Soccer, we've seen, has not landed super well. They're in the top half, but they're, if soccer teams of Todd's earlier years would have dominated that league.
Would have.
But
it had an undefeated
I
run
think
through the league.
basically those games against Gonzaga are going to be massive. Like those are going to decide the conference, and that's going to be fun. That's so fun.
Yep.
Like it's
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we're in store. You know, what is Bart's projected record for them is like 15-4 in league or something like that.
Let me look.
20
Sorry,
and 10
you caught me
overall,
off
if I
guard
remember right.
there. Sorry, I'm looking. Yeah, 20 and 10 overall, 15-4 in the league. So
I mean,
yeah.
if they do that, they're in the conversation for an at-large bid, depending
I
on
agree.
what wins they get in the non-conference.
Yeah.
So you know it, and what wins they get in conference. So like
and it
so
is
that's,
as you mentioned, like it's a lot. It's Stanford, Texas Tech, Iowa, Virginia, Oregon, BYU. like there are some heavyweights in there. And the only one that's at home there is BYU. The rest of those are all either on the road or at neutral sites, which, you expect at this point. And, Bart projects them to be, underdogs in all of those games, anywhere from like 4 to 10 point underdogs. So, lots and lots of opportunities to build a resume there. And, if I'm thinking about, my one player that I'm thinking could take a really massive leap forward to help the team is Jenna Villa. Tremendous recruit. You could see a lot of the tools last year, but, still a freshman, the speed of the game, maybe, still a little much. And also maybe a little bit of physicality of the game, was a little rough for her at times as well, but man, she can shoot, she can score. She's a very, intuitive basketball player. I look for her to take, a big jump. And if she can take that jump into a player who, is truly a weapon, that really transforms the team, because she is such a potential matchup nightmare for opponents. I mean, she's 6'1", but she's really a guard. And, at that size and with the different things she can do, she has the potential to really kind of turn, kind of run right through the WCC. So I'm excited to watch her develop.
And then of course, Ella Villa, she showed a lot of promise last year in the WCC. I think she was a preseason all conference, which I believe that Tara was as well. And then you have, what is Alex Colville gonna, in her second year, and then you have,
especially against the players in the WCC, man. Like, how many shots is she gonna erase?
And this is still a really tall team. Like you have, coming off a red shirt, Candace is 6'3", and then you have 6'2" Diana Mendez. Like there's just in the guards, you still have 6'1" Tara at guard, 6'1" Jenna at guard, and then 5'8". So you brought in some freshman guards that are 5'10", 5'11". This is still a huge team.
Yep.
And that's going to be an asset, not just in the WCC, but when they play these power teams, just to not be outsized at the very least. So yeah, they have a lot of freshmen. I've heard a lot of promise around these freshmen, so it'll be some of them are definitely going to play. A lot, like several of them are definitely going to play. But Tara's taking a step up every year. I'm excited to see her this year. And then obviously Astir Tahini, we haven't even mentioned. I think she's going to have some fun in this league.
Yep.
That's kind of a dark horse, like all WCC player right there in AT. Just what she can do when she's like hitting her outside shot, when she's just breaking people's ankles. So yeah, I think this would be a really fun season to watch. Oh, not even mention Kira Gardner, who is a massively athletic 5'11" guard, who I'm pretty sure can dunk pretty easily if she wants to. I don't know. She jumps like so high.
She is extremely athletic.
She's a defensive stopper. So yeah, I'm excited about the roster they still have. Obviously we lost Charlize, and she's playing for one of the bad bad teams. But you know what? Like, there's still Cammie and her staff have done such a great job of building this roster. That like losing Charlize, and they're still a really good team. Like they're like Bart says they're still like a top 60-ish team, and they lost like the best player in Wazoo history. Like that's pretty sick, you know. Like, and I tell you, WSU in the history of their women's team, there has not been a lot of the teams that have been that good. Like to be like a fringe tournament team coming into the year. So that this should be fun. I think it'll be an exciting. They're going to stack a lot of wins. It's going to be fun. They're going to have a lot of big games up top. So I know usually we kind of catch up with basketball in January, but pay attention before then. There's going to be a lot of big games. On ESPN Plus. It'll be on whatever the other leagues streaming services are. And then now let's take a pivot over to the men. Much more turnover. It is pretty much an entirely new team from top to bottom, with the exception of Isaiah Watts. And there is a whole lot of Eastern Washington from last year on this team, which I've been, not gonna lie, struggling with that a little bit. Like that Eastern last year wasn't, they were good in the Big Sky, but would they have competed in the West Coast Conference? No. Now when I'm saying competed, it's obviously a tough road to be like challenging for the conference title when Gonzaga's there, and you have to have a pretty damn good team. But I obviously, like, where they're at now, they're above most of the teams in the league, but we're kind of going to have to wait and see how taking like the top 5 or 6 players from Eastern last year and then having a better bench essentially is going to work out.
Bart's got him at 85th overall, which is basically dead even with San Francisco, and that would put them behind Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So if you look at that, Bart is much higher on them than Ken Pom. And I think that the reason why, I think the reason's pretty simple, that Bart uses his projection system as individual player driven, right? So he's got every single individual player in his system, what they've done, what they've not, where they came from,
a projection of what they will do.
And so he projects what the individuals will do and then uses that to project for the team, right? Ken uses some other stuff. He does not do individual player projections. His is more about like program history, basically things with programs and coaches,
returning production
that tend to returning production, which of course at this point is Isaiah Watts and his 30% minutes or whatever. So so very little returning production, new coach, a program history that suggests we are like, 100th or so, most years, things like that. So not a surprise that his system thinks a little bit less of us. So obviously Bart's system is superior. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there because he thinks our team's better. So obviously Bart's system is the better one. But no, like in all seriousness, it is going to be interesting to see like how much the turnover matters. Bringing in the best players from Eastern, supplementing with, other players, guys who could really make a difference. Obviously Cedric Howard is awesome. Like that goes without saying.
Yeah.
He's, by really any, projection measure is your top player. I think the guy who could really be, I think the guy who to me could be the guy who, maybe makes the difference between the team being, pretty good and, third place in the WCC to, really maybe honestly pushing for some kind of at-large bid or being, hovering around the bubble is Nate Calmes. So he's a transfer from
I was
Washington,
going to say same.
point guard, was so good as a freshman and transferred up to Washington, and that just did not work out. And I just cannot convince myself to read that much into the fact that it didn't work out at Washington. Mike Hopkins, God bless him, but not a good coach. They ended up changing coaches. So the fact that he couldn't really find a role with Washington doesn't make me think the guy can't play, right? Like there are some other places they might come from where you go, man, if you can't find a role there with that coach, like, but that's not the case for me, for a guy coming from Washington, because it was just such a mess. And, the coach ends up getting fired. And, I just don't know how many people in the last however many years went to Washington and found that to be a better situation than the one they were in before. Like, I truly think like you just kind of run down the list of guys who transferred in there, and it's like, man, I don't know how many of them found it to be better off.
The one point guard they had a couple years ago, he did pretty well. I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
can run down the names of other guys. I mean, you can go, Noah, you can go Kempnong. You can just kind of work your way. Obviously, it worked out for Keon Brooks. Don't get me wrong on that. Like, obviously, he was great, but I just feel like there were far more misses than hits when guys went to Washington and maybe didn't see the success that they thought they were going to get, which stood in obviously huge contrast to WSU under Kyle. And so I'm hoping we can continue that here with Riley for sure. And I do think that it's a really, I think it says a lot about David Riley that all these guys wanted to follow him. Now, you could take a cynical view and say, of course they were going to follow him to a bigger program if he wanted him. But at the same time, I don't know, there was a vibe about it that was like, I mean, Cedric Coward could have gone anywhere, right? Like let's be honest about, maybe some of the other guys, maybe they didn't have, great offers or offers that are clearly superior to Washington State. But Cedric Coward definitely did. And he felt like his best bet to develop and to reach his ultimate goal as a pro was to be with David Riley. I think that says a lot. I think that says a lot. And so I'm excited to see what these guys can do. I'm excited to see the guys that he brought in, some of whom I'm like, okay, I'm excited to see if they really can play also. And I'm excited to see if we play any defense. I have no idea if we're going to play any defense whatsoever. So
I think that's going to be, I think there's a lot of offensive talent on this team. I expect them to be a pretty solid offense.
Yep.
What's going to take them from, in that 80 to 100 range to being challenging for the bubble, being in that 50 to 80, like 50 to 75, challenging for the bubble or being up in the top of the conference, is if they play some defense. And he was rebuilding a team at Eastern, maybe that you got to do what you can do and build the offense, and maybe there's more emphasis on this. And a lot of these players are older. Players usually, as they get older, get more dedicated to working hard on defensive end, especially if they can sense like, well, if I want to go pro, like I'm going to need to shore up this end of my game. So maybe that helps. But yeah, they got to play better defense than they did last year. Hopefully, some of the guys that came in can help build that up. Obviously, Isaiah, was with a defensive focused coach last year. Hopefully he can, as an older guy, have some influence on some of these players. And let's play defense. We played defense last year. Let's work our butts off on here. Yeah, he's a very vocal guy. He just seems like a guy that's always going to be some sort of leader. Even I don't think he projects to be a starter. And that's honestly a little bit encouraging. Isaiah showed he was a pretty talented guy by the end of the season last year, and was in was in the rotation and made very important plays, and sometimes in the final in the game ending stretch for an NCAA tournament team and a second round NCAA tournament team. Everyone remember that? Remember when we did that? That was amazing. But
I remember that. You were there.
Yeah, I was there. Yep. I cried. I cried both nights for different reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like it's so hard to tell what's gonna happen. Like you could just look at Eastern last year and be like, please be better than that.
Yeah.
And I think they will be. I think there's a lot better surrounding those top players from Eastern. Now I wish they had Casey Jones this year. That would be cool.
That
says
would
he's
be
coming
cool.
in 2 years after his LDS mission. That would be cool if they had him this year. He is one of those just weird player, like just such a great rebounder and ability to draw fouls. Like he's just so weird that he just, and plus all the wealth of Ninja Turtles Casey Jones memes. I just want to deploy them now. I don't want to wait 2 years.
We just got those loaded up and ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I it's hard for me. I think they're gonna win more than they lose in the WCC. That's like I think they're gonna beat more teams than not in that league. Now their non-conference, they play a neutral site but really road game at Iowa. It's in Moline, Illinois, which is like however you say it. It's like really close to Iowa City. They actually, outside of that, like it's not a crazy tough non-conference schedule, which tells me that they were being very cautious about what they had. Obviously Nevada and Boise State, good teams. Those would be like two of their toughest games. Washington away, that'll be a big game. It could be a quad one. Nevada, Boise State could be quad ones. Iowa's going to be a quad one probably on neutral site. And then, but other than that, like Bradley's top 100. And then when you get into conference play, obviously St. Mary's is good. Santa Clara and San Francisco around top 100. Gonzaga's Gonzaga. But other than then, it's like a huge drop off after those teams. Like it just, even Oregon State's not projected to be very good. So yeah, like you got some okay games, but it's I don't think they're not playing any top 30, top 20 ish. I mean, Iowa's close, but like they're not playing many of those. So they're kind of like, we'll play a team we maybe could beat, but it's definitely gonna be a quad one. And I think that's what everyone does these days.
Smart.
But I think there's a lot of other games where they are just hoping they're not tested and they can just get some wins and hopefully get, work on their rotation and all that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I'll get to watch them against Bradley. I'm really excited. That is actually like Ken Palm has WSU. That's like a toss up. So if they were able to win that game handily, you'd probably feel pretty good. If they were able to blow out Portland State, you'll feel better. The first game is always hard to read, but some of these early games, just how they perform against these teams, like will give you a little bit of a gauge on where they're at. Because honestly, like it's hard to think, like, is there gonna be as big of an adjustment period as we're used to? Because like most of the starters will have played together last year in the same system under the same coach, just 75 miles up the road. I don't know how much of an adjustment, or if they're gonna kind of hit the ground running because like they just know what they're doing because half the team was there.
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to watch. I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope that's the benefit of this is that.
Well, they kind of need to, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
they really do.
there's not going to be many. I mean, not that in the Pac-12 over many years there were that many opportunities either, but there's not as many. There's not that many opportunities in the WCC to pick up the kinds of wins that might, propel you into the tournament. And I think some of that is evident, like just sort of like intuitively evident from when you look at Bart's page and he projects us out, I think as a 20 win team and 14 wins or something like that, 12 wins in the WCC, like 20-10, 12-6, for a team that Bart is projecting as like, 85th nationally. Right. So that just kind of gives you a sense of like the relative strength of the WCC. Right. So if you're, 20 wins and 12-6 in the WCC, that's not going to get you in the NCAA tournament. Might get you in the NIT, but not going to get you into the NCAAs. You probably are going to need to be something more like, 24-10 and 14-4 or something like that to really have. And even that might not be sufficient coming out of the WCC. I mean, we saw plenty of years where Santa Clara, had a pretty decent resume, had 20 plus 25 wins or whatever, and still was maybe on the bubble. So yeah, you're going to need a lot of wins and the hitting the ground running. I mean, that's the part you cross your fingers for, right? Is like, maybe you can pick off, at least a couple of these games against Iowa, Nevada, Boise State, Washington. You got to get, I would think you got to get at least two of those to have a good feeling like heading into conference play that you're, pretty squarely around the bubble, and maybe even three of the four. At that point, you're stoked. You're like, all right, we're doing this, and we look good.
Especially if you
ready to
didn't
go.
drop
So,
a real bad one in the
yes, yeah,
in the other
so
ones.
starting Monday against Portland State, that's a team they should beat handily. Bradley, I don't know. We'll see. Again, that's one where Bart and Ken diverge pretty significantly. Bart's got us as a 69% favorite to win that game. So, yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see, kind of like from a total nerd perspective, which one of these systems has a more accurate gauge on the team.
Also, by the way, like this is maybe Bradley's toughest non-conference game is in Pullman.
Yeah.
So they might
Yep.
they might think it's pretty big deal, which is
They
like
might.
we're just in this new world of everyone thinks that we're the big bad guy now.
Well, hopefully playing on the road is for them is their downfall.
Yeah, I got floor seats for my 6-year-old, and they better win. All right.
Yeah.
She's like, Daddy, the Cougs always win, is what she tells me, just because I know I shield her from the bad.
That's good parenting right there.
And I think like they have mostly pretty much always won at games that she's went to. So
yeah.
she kind of
Yeah.
just is, the Cougs always win, Dad. Like,
Yeah,
it's
of
fine.
course,
Why are you
right?
so
That's
worried,
how
Dad?
this works.
Why are you always so stressed? They always win.
Well, yeah. Listen. I'll be honest. That was me from about 1997 till about 2003, and I was like, yeah, like this is how we do our football team now. We're like this is the stratosphere that we reside in. Competing for conference championships and shit like that. So yeah, I mean that's clearly that could never change. So I feel
absolutely, yeah. All right, let's pivot to quick rundown of volleyball and soccer. I'll start with soccer. This week, let's see, what have we not covered, what have we covered? Let me look.
Well, I know
Santa
they were
Clara,
on 9. They were on 9 points last week.
They haven't played since we recorded.
They have not played. They have not played.
Yep.
Since Santa Clara.
They have not played. Yep. So we knew about Santa. That was like the night we recorded or the night before.
Yep. So they got
I think
at
it was
San
the night we
Francisco
recorded
this
with Santa Clara.
weekend. They got at San Francisco this weekend, Oregon State next week. So Yep. I mean, even if they win out, I don't know that it makes any difference in terms of postseason.
I still would like them to. I would like them to finish as high as
that
possible.
would be good. That would be good.
I want them to feel good about themselves.
Yes.
So volleyball has had one match since we last recorded. They swept Gonzaga. Suck it, Gonzaga.
Suck it.
Yeah. They had Dig or Treat fan appreciation night.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Okay.
Dig or Treat. Love it.
Wow.
So they have coming up on Halloween, probably as you're listening, this will be released, they're at Loyola Marymount, and then they're also this weekend at Pepperdine. So a couple big matches if they want to hang in the conference race there.
I mean, those are the two teams ahead of them.
Yeah.
The two teams ahead of them in the standings. Win both of those, you're in first place. So.
Yep. So big weekend in California for volleyball. Check it out.
Yeah.
Gonzaga's really bad at volleyball. They dominated them as they should have.
Yes.
Yeah. So they have that, and then after that, a couple home games. That great weekend. There's so much sports the weekend after that in Pullman. Just an insane amount of sports in Pullman that weekend. I'll talk about that next week. But yeah, so good times. Go volleyball. Go shock the world down there in California, Southern California. But yeah, Jeff, I guess that's it. That's all. If you want to follow us on socials, we actually have socials specifically for the podcast now. Instagram, Podcast Versus Everyone. TikTok for the youths, Podcast Versus Everyone. I'm having fun with those. I enjoy it. And so please follow them. I'm trying to be a sassy Coug on there. We post clips from our podcast, whatever. But also, Jeff, I guess since we pub that, you can follow us on Twitter at the Craig Powers at Pod Versus Everyone. But really, 7-1, go fucking Cougs.
Yeah, go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
And get vaccinated.
And for the love of God, don't let him win again.
No. And vote no on all 4 initiatives in Washington State.
And vote no on all 4 initiatives.